Hey everybody, it's Anjanette from AJ's Personal Touch. How you doing? I hope you're doing great. Um, this is first for me. I am taping Anna Karenina really late. It's 10:06 p.m. So I normally try and do it during the day. The sun is out. Um, maybe so I'm not too tired, but sometimes I haven't slept enough, so then I'm too tired, and I try not to let that come through. I know I want to do two a week, and I have not been doing that lately, so I do apologize. I didn't want Sunday to get out of here for one thing without me taping, but second, I've been wanting to tape all day. It's just every time I sit down to tape, my messages start going bing, 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 bing. Whether it is my Facebook Messenger or my text message. Facebook Messenger is normally my friends and stuff. A lot of them that I've met here, a lot of them that I video chat with, which I'm normally doing at this time, but I'm too tired today. I already told them hours ago I wasn't going to tonight because I'm just too tired. And I had things to get done. Unfortunately, I did not get them done. Um, Instead, I fell down the rabbit hole of being online. And what I wanted to do was finally catch up on my email and like get it caught up so that I have what I want in each one, my personal email, my business, and then my second business one, where all of the emails from all the blog hops, and all of the blogs I belong, all of that can go to, so that I can get everything else in my regular business one. Like if you guys send me an email or, you know, I need to put all of my catalog stuff in there and all my sales stuff and, all that kind of stuff in there so that I see stuff when it goes on sale and not hear about it after the fact. And I'm like, oh, especially now that I'm doing stitch markers, because I want to know when, the ones that I'm interested in are going on sale or when Joann's is having a huge doorbuster on their beads or their charms because I try to find them at the best prices that I can so that I can keep the prices for you guys as best as I can. So, yeah, just a little bit about this weekend, I guess, before I start because I just feel like chatting with you guys for a minute. I know I don't normally do that on these, but I got to go to my best friend's house last night. This is the second time um, this year. I was going to say this summer, but it's not really summer anymore because fall is officially here. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. We've had the first day of fall. I know that because on my blessings group, I did the um, last day of some secret pal thing. I do a secret pal almost every month, and I need to train somebody to do that for me the last couple months because I got a lot coming up. I have the possibility of two surgeries, but I think I may have mentioned that before. But I'll know more later. But anyway, I got to go to my best friend's house, and I haven't seen her in a while. Not since a couple months ago when we all went for a bonfire, and then we had a warning last night. We hadn't had enough rain here in Indiana. Things were dry. There was going to be a high wind, so no burning yesterday. And everybody's like, oh no. And I'm like, yay, we get to meet, no burning. My asthma's not going to go out of whack. And then at the last minute, they decided to go ahead and burn because the winds had died down. And yeah, it was nice. I stayed far enough away from the fire. I didn't take my inhaler because I wasn't expecting them to burn. Um, I stayed pretty good on my low carb diet. My friend brought pizza and I just scraped everything off the top so that I could have something to eat. And plus, I took deviled eggs. I am in love with my deviled eggs made with the yolks and then avocado and just a little bit of mayonnaise. And sometimes I add turmeric to it, and I did that last night. So very yummy. My friend's daughter, who I consider my niece, she loved it too. I'm sorry, they, them loved it too. I forgot. Um, she has changed her pronouns, and I'm trying to learn and be extremely respectful and remember to call them Logan. So, Logan has a precious soul, and they remind me of my daughter very, very much. And my daughter used to watch them and their sister. So, yeah, and her sister, their sister was there last night too. So I don't know if they'll watch this or not. I gave them my channel name last night, and they seemed interested in watching it. So we'll see. May not see this one since it's the Anna Karenina episode, but I enjoyed last night immensely. And we are, well, most of it, I should say. We did have a part of last night that was not so enjoyable, but after that part ended, we all enjoyed it immensely, I think. The core of us who are left, and we're hoping to all get together again sometime. Karaoke at a place where the younger ones can go and they can sing too. I am so excited about that. So excited about that. So I'm always excited to get out of the house, but it always wears me out. Even though I wasn't there very long because my friend who was picking me up, he ended up having daytime obligations and he couldn't come until later to get me, but it didn't matter. The little bit of time I had was fun and amazing, and I got out of the house. Cats missed me. I got home. They were so appreciative to have mom home. So, all of that said, I think it is about started. What do you guys think? Are you ready to hear what's going on the next couple chapters of Anna Karenina? It's getting good, isn't it? Tell me what you think below. Let me know if you think it's getting good. I think it's getting good. I really do. But I'm always curious to hear what you guys have to say. Sorry, I got another message I'm trying to answer real quick, and then I will not be looking at my phone again because I will be reading Anna Karenina. And I got my tea ready, but I also have my protein drink sitting here because I haven't had enough protein today. I'm excited. My husband got me some turkey bacon this morning. I cannot handle regular bacon anymore, but I do love turkey bacon. Although it is a little drier and it's pretty salty. Although I've had some regular bacon that is so amazingly salty that one of the reasons I don't eat regular bacon anymore. Plus, with the fat on it, it fries more. Um, Turkey bacon doesn't have that fried effect to it, and I'm not supposed to have fried foods. And even though bacon isn't exactly fried like fried chicken and other fried things are, it is still very greasy and very much in the fried zone for me, and it just upsets my stomach a lot. He got me some turkey bacon. I took 2 eggs and some turkey bacon after I cooked it up. Then I cooked the eggs and I cut up the turkey bacon and mix it in with the eggs, and then I put cheese on top of it. And I took one of my low carb, not tortillas, but wraps, but I heated it up like a tortilla. He did get me some tortillas today, but they were smaller, and what I had made was too much to put into just one small one. Um, Although next time I think I may just go ahead and do that and leave the rest on the side and just eat it not in the wrap. But oh, it was good. It was so good. I used to eat almost daily um, breakfast burritos that he got for me from the freezer section. All Monterey ones, I think they are. They have so many carbs in them, so many carbs. And I have to be watching that now. So we still have a bunch in the freezer. So I'm hoping he'll eat them. If not, I need to find somebody to give them to around here because I don't want him. I don't want to throw them away. That wouldn't be good. Sorry, I just feel like I need my protein right now, so I was trying to get it in. Anyway, I made that, and it came out just really good. And I did toast the sides of the wrap like you do with the tortilla, both sides. And then I put it in there, and it took me a good hour to eat, but it was good. It was really, really good. It did need a little improvement, so I think next time I'm gonna have to check and see, or try to make sure that we have some fresh mushrooms, or maybe open a can of mushrooms and just put some mushrooms in and put the rest in the fridge and use them when I make something. He bought me two packages because they were on sale and you had to buy two. And there was a we go to Meyer, so anybody who knows Meyer, they have M Perks, which are digital coupons, and there was a digital coupon for $2 off of two. So we got me both packs, and I put one in the freezer for later, and I put the rest of the one that I opened in a Tupperware container. So yeah, I have a feeling that for the next couple days, when it comes to lunchtime, after I've done my pool therapy or regular therapy, I am probably going to be having turkey bacon and probably turkey bacon with eggs, whether it be the deviled eggs that I make, because I have some of those left from last night, and then I have two two hard boiled eggs that I had saved and I didn't make into deviled eggs last night that I can make in, and plus I have some filling left because instead of getting me the small avocados like he normally does, he got me the huge gigantic ones that were on sale. So yeah, I've got filling left, and I'm gonna eat some of that. I think on uh, Wasu crackers. I think they're called the ones that have like no carbs in them. And then, but I can also like spread it over the wrap and then put the eggs and that in it. So yeah, another way. Yeah, I have been doing pretty good, and I'll give you an update on how much weight I lost later and in a different video because I've spent too much time talking, and I didn't mean to spend this much time talking. So let's get to Anna Karenina, which is why we are all here. Chapter 28 from part 2. When Alexei Alexandrovich reached the race course, Anna was. No, I did that one, didn't I? Hold on a second. I'll be right back. Sorry. Okay, yes, I'm on the right chapter. I'm not thinking. I was thinking Alexei was Vronsky, and I got confused there for a minute. So, yes, it sounds like it's like going back so you can hear from other people what's going on. Okay, here we go again. Chapter 28, part 2. When Alexei Alexandrovich reached the race course, Anna was already sitting in the pavilion besides Betsy. In that pavilion where all the highest society had gathered, She caught sight of her husband in the distance. Two men, her husband and her lover, were the two centers of her existence, and unaided by her external senses, she was aware of their nearness. She was aware of her husband approaching a long way off, and she could not help following him in the surging crowd, in the midst of which he was moving. She watched his progress towards the pavilion, saw him now responding condescendingly to an ingratiating bow, now exchanging friendly, nonchalant greetings with his equals, now assiduously trying to catch the eye of some great one of this world, and taking off his big round hat that squeezed the tips of his ears. All these ways of his she knew, and all were hateful to her. Nothing but ambition, nothing but the desire to get on. That's all there is in his soul, she thought. For those lofty ideals, love of culture, religion, they are only so many tools for getting on. From his glances toward the ladies' pavilion, he was staring straight at her, but but did not distinguish his wife in the sea of muslin, ribbons, feathers, parasols, and flowers. She saw that he was looking for her, but she purposely avoided noticing him. Alexey Alexandrovitch, Princess Betty called to him. I'm sure you don't see your wife. Here she is. He smiled his chilly smile. There's so much splendor here that one's eyes are dazzled, he said, and he went into the pavilion. He smiled to his wife as a man should smile on meeting his wife, after only just parting from her, and greeted the princess and the other acquaintances, giving to each what was due, that is to say, jesting with the ladies and dealing out friendly greetings among the men. Below, near the pavilion, was standing an adjunct general of whom Alexey Alexandrovitch had a high opinion, noted for his intelligence and culture. Alexey Alexandrovitch entered into conversation with him. There was an interval between the races, and so nothing hindered conversation. The adjutant general expressed his disapproval of races. Alexey Alexandrovitch replied defending them. Anna heard his high measured tones, not losing one word, and every word struck her as false, and stabbed her ears with pain. When the 3-mile steeplechase was beginning, she bent forward and gazed with fixed eyes on Vronsky as he went up to his horse and mounted, and at the same time she heard that loathsome, never-ceasing voice of her husband. She was in an agony of terror for Vronsky, but a still greater agony was the never-ceasing, as it seemed to her, stream of her husband's shrill voice with its familiar intonations. I'm a wicked woman, a lost woman, she thought, but I don't like lying. I can't endure falsehoods. While as for him, her husband, it's the breath of his life, falsehood. He knows all about it. He sees it all. What does he care if he can talk so calmly? If he were to kill me, if he were to kill Vronsky, I might respect him. No, all he wants is falsehood and propriety. Anna said to herself, not considering exactly what it was she wanted of her husband, and how she would have liked to see him behave. She did not understand either that Alexey Alexandrovitch's peculiar loquacity that day, so exasperating to her, was merely the expression of his inward distress and uneasiness. As a child that has been hurt, skips about, putting all his muscles into movement to drown the pain, in the same way Alexey Alexandrovitch needed mental exercise to drown the thoughts of his wife that in her presence and in Vronsky's, and with the continual iteration of his name, would force themselves on his attention. And it was as natural for him to talk well and cleverly as it is natural for a child to skip about. He was saying, danger in the races of officers, of cavalrymen, is an essential element in the race. If England can point to the most brilliant feats of cavalry in military history, it is simply owing to the fact that she has historically developed this force both in beasts and in men. Sport has, in my opinion, a great value, and as always the case, we see nothing but the most superficial. It's not superficial, said Princess Tverskaya. One of the officers, they say, has broken 2 ribs. Alexei Alexandrovitch smiled his smile, which uncovered his teeth, but revealed nothing more. Well, I'll admit, Princess, that's not superficial, he said, but internal. But that's not the point. And he turned again to the general, whom he was talking seriously. We mustn't forget that those who are taking part in the race are military men who have chosen that career, and one must allow that every calling has its disagreeable side. It forms an integral part of the duties of an officer. Low sports, such as prize fighting or Spanish bullfights, are a sign of barbarity, but specialized trials of skill are a sign of development. No, I shan't come another time. It's too upsetting, said Princess Betsy. Isn't it, Anna? It is upsetting, but one can't tear oneself away, said another lady. If I'd been a Roman woman, I should never have missed a single circus. Anna said nothing and kept her opera glass up, gazing always at the same spot. At that moment, a tall general walked through the pavilion. Breaking off what he was saying, Alexei Alexandrovitch got up hurriedly, though with dignity, and bowed low to the general. You're not racing? The officer asked, chaffing him. My race is a harder one, Alexei Alexandrovitch responded deferentially. And although the answer meant nothing, the general looked as though he had heard a witty remark from a witty man, and fully relished le point de la sauce. These are two aspects, Alexei Alexandrovitch resumed. Those who take part and those who look on, and love for such spectacles is an unmistakable proof of a low degree of development in the spectator, I admit. But Princess Betts, shouted Stepan Arkadyevitch's voice from below, addressing Betsy. Who's your favorite? Anna and I are for Kuzovlev, replied Betsy. I'm for Vronsky, a pair of gloves. Done. But it is a pretty sight, isn't it? Alexei Alexandrovitch paused while there was talking about him, but he began again directly. I admit that many sports do not, he was continuing, but at that moment the racers started, and all conversation ceased. Alexei Alexandrovitch too was silent, and everyone stood up and turned towards the stream. Alexei Alexandrovitch took no interest in the race, so he did not watch the racers, but fell listlessly to scanning the spectators with his weary eyes. His eyes rested upon Anna. Her face was white and set. She was obviously seeing nothing and no one but one man. Her hand had convulsively clutched her fan, and she held her breath. He looked at her and hastily turned away, scrutinizing other faces. But here's this lady, too, and others very much moved as well. Very natural, Alexei Alexandrovitch told himself. He tried not to look at her, but unconsciously his eyes were drawn to her. He examined that face again, trying not to read what was so plainly written on it, and against his own will, with horror, read on it what he did not want to know. The first fall, Kuzovlev's at the stream, agitated everyone, but Alexei Alexandrovitch saw distinctly on Anna's pale, triumphant face that the man she was watching had not fallen. When after Mhotin and Vronsky had cleared the worst barrier, the next officer had been thrown straight on his head at it and fatally injured, and the shudder of horror passed over the whole public. Alexei Alexandrovitch saw that Anna did not even notice it, and had some difficulty in realizing what they were talking of about her. But more and more often, and with greater persistence, he watched her. Anna, wholly engrossed as she was with the race, became aware of her husband's cold eyes fixed upon her from one side. She glanced round for an instant, looked inquiringly at him, and with a slight frown turned away again. Ah, I don't care, she seemed to say to him, and she did not once glance at him again. The race was an unlucky one, and of the 17 officers who rode in it, more than half were thrown and hurt. Towards the end of the race, everyone was in a state of agitation, which was intensified by the fact that the Tsar was displeased. Chapter 29. Everyone was loudly expressing disapprobation. Everyone was repeating a phrase someone had uttered. The lions and gladiators will be the next thing, and everyone was feeling horrified. so that when Vronsky fell to the ground and Anna moaned aloud, there was nothing very out of the way in it. But afterwards, a change came over Anna's face which really was beyond decorum. She utterly lost her head. She began fluttering like a caged bird. At one moment would have got up and moved away. At the next, turned to Betsy. Let us go, she said. But Betsy did not hear her. She was bending down, talking to a general who had come up to her. Alexey Alexandrovitch went up to Anna and courteously offered her his arm. Let us go if you like, he said in French. But Anna was listening to the general and did not notice her husband. He's broken his leg too, so they say, the general was saying. This is beyond everything. Without answering her husband, Anna lifted her opera glass and gazed towards the place where Vronsky had fallen. But it was so far off, and there was such a crowd of people about it, that she could make out nothing. She laid down the opera glass and would have moved away, but at that moment an officer galloped up and made some announcement to the Tsar. Anna craned forward, listening. Stiva, Stiva, she cried to her brother. But her brother did not hear her, and again she would have moved away. Once more I offer you my arm if you want to be going, said Alexey Alexandrovitch, reaching towards her hand. She drew back from him with aversion, and without looking in his face answered, No, no, let me be, I'll stay. She saw now that from the place of Vronsky's accident an officer was running across the course towards the pavilion. Betsy waved her handkerchief to him. The officer brought the news that the rider was not killed, but the horse had broken its back. On hearing this, Anna sat down hurriedly and hid her face in her fan. Alexey Alexandrovitch saw that she was weeping and could not control her tears, nor even the sobs that were shaking her bosom. Alexey Alexandrovitch stood so as to screen her, giving her time to recover herself. For the third time I offer you my arm, he said to her after a little time, turning to her. Anna gazed at him and did not know what to say. Princess Betsy came to her rescue. No, Alexey Alexandrovitch, I brought Anna, and I promised to take her home, put in Betsy. Excuse me, Princess, he said, smiling courteously, but looking at her very firmly in the face. But I see that Anna's not very well, and I wish her to come home with me. Anna looked about her in a frightened way, got up submissively, and laid her hand on her husband's arm. I'll send him and find out and let I'll send to him and find out and let you know, Betsy whispered to her. As they left the pavilion, Alexey Alexandrovitch, as always, talked to those he met, and Anna had, as always, to talk and answer, but she was utterly beside herself and moved, hanging on her husband's arm, as though in a dream. Is he killed or not? Is it true? Will he come or not? Shall I see him today? She was thinking. She took her seat in her husband's carriage in silence, and in silence drove out of the crowd of carriages. In spite of all he had seen, Alexey Alexandrovitch still did not allow himself to consider his wife's real condition. He merely saw the outward symptoms. He saw that she was behaving unbecomingly, and considered it his duty to tell her so. But it was very difficult for him not to say more, to tell her nothing but that. He opened his mouth to tell her she had behaved unbecomingly, but he could not help saying something utterly different. What an inclination we all have, though, for these cruel spectacles, he said. I observe. Eh? I don't understand, said Anna contemptuously. He was offended, and at once began to say what he had meant to say. I am obliged to tell you, he began. So now we are to have it out, she thought, and felt frightened. I am obliged to tell you that your behavior has been unbecoming today, he said to her in French. In what way has my behavior been unbecoming? She said aloud, turning her head swiftly and looking him straight in the face, not with the bright expression that seemed covering something, but with a look of determination, under which she concealed with difficulty the dismay she was feeling. Mind, he said, pointing to the open window opposite the coachman. He got up and pulled up the window. What did you consider unbecoming? She repeated. The despair you were unable to conceal at the accident to one of the riders. He waited for her to answer, but she was silent, looking straight before her. I have already begged you to conduct yourself in society, that even malicious tongues can find nothing to say against you. There was a time when I spoke of your inward attitude, but I am not speaking of that now. Now I speak only of your external attitude. You have behaved improperly, and I would wish it not to occur again. She did not hear half of what he was saying. She felt panic-stricken before him, and was thinking whether it was true that Vronsky was not killed. Was it of him that they were speaking when they said the rider was unhurt, but the horse had broken its back? She merely smiled with the pretense of irony when he finished, and made no reply. Because she had not heard what he had said, Alexey Alexandrovitch had begun to speak boldly. But as he realized plainly what he was speaking of, the dismay she was feeling infected him too. He saw the smile and a strange mis- misapprehension come over him. She is smiling at my suspicions. Yes, she will tell me directly what she told me before, and there is no foundation for my suspicions. That is absurd. At that moment, when the revelation of everything was hanging over him, there was nothing he expected so much as that she would answer mockingly, as before that his suspicions were absurd and utterly groundless. So terrible to him was that he knew that now he was ready to believe anything. But the expression of her face, scared and gloomy, did not now promise even deception. Possibly I was mistaken, he said. If so, I beg your pardon. No, you were not mistaken, she said deliberately, looking desperate into his cold face. You were not mistaken. I was, and I could not help being in despair. I hear you, but I am thinking of him. I love him. I am his mistress. I can't bear you. I am afraid of you, and I hate you. You can do what you like to me. And dropping back into the corner of the carriage, she broke into sobs, hiding her face in her hands. Alexey Alexandrovitch did not stir, and kept looking straight before him. His whole face suddenly bore the solemn rigidity of the dead, and expression did not change during the whole time of the drive home. On reaching the house, he turned his head to her, still with the same expression. Very well, but I expect a strict observance of the external forms of propriety, till such time, his voice shook, as I may take measures to secure my honor and communicate them to you. He got out first and helped her to get out. Before the servants, he pressed her hand, took his seat in the carriage, and drove back to Petersburg. Immediately afterwards, a footman came from Princess Betsy and brought Anna a note. I sent to Alexey to find out how he is, and he writes me he is quite well and unhurt, but in despair. So he will be here, she thought. What a good thing. I told him all. She glanced at her watch. She had still 3 hours to wait, and the memories of her last meeting set her blood in flame. My God, how light it is! It's dreadful, but I do love to see his face, and I do love this fantastic light. My husband, oh yes, well, thank God everything's over with him. Chapter 30. In the little German watering place to which the Shkletbatskys had betaken themselves, as in all places indeed where people are gathered together, the usual process, as it were, of the crystallization of society went on, assigning to each member of that society a definite and unalterable place, just as the particle of water in frost definitely and unalterably takes the special form of the crystal of snow. So each new person that arrived at the springs was at once placed in his special place. First, Shklerbatsky, stamped Gemalin und Tolker, by the apartments they took, and from their name and from the friends they made, were immediately crystallized into a definite place marked out for them. There was visiting the watering place the year a real German Fürstin, in consequences of which the crystallizing process went on more vigorously than ever. Princess Shkletbatskaya wished above everything to present her daughter to the German princess, and the day after their arrival she duly performed this rite. Kitty made a low and graceful curtsy in the very simple, that is to say, very elegant frock that had been ordered her from Paris. The German princess said, "I hope the roses will soon come back to this pretty little face." And for the Sklibatskys certain definite lines of existence were at once laid down from which there was no departing. The Sklibatskys made the acquaintance too of the family of an English lady, somebody, and of a German countess and her son, wounded in the last war, and of a learned Swede, and of M. Knut and his sister. But yet, inevitably, the Sklibatskys were thrown most into the society of a Moscow lady, Marya Yev- Yevgenyevna Richkasheva, and her daughter, whom Kitty disliked because she had fallen ill, like herself, over a love affair, and a Moscow colonel whom Kitty had known from childhood and always seen in uniform and epaulets, and who now, with his little eyes and his open neck and flowered cravat, was uncommonly ridiculous and tedious. But this was no getting rid. But there was no getting rid of him. When all of this was so firmly established, Kitty began to be very much bored, especially at the prince, especially as the prince went away to Carlsbad and she was left alone with her mother. She took no interest in the people she knew, feeling that nothing fresh would come of them. Her chief mental interest in the watering place consisted in watching and making theories about the people she did not know. It was characteristic of Kitty that she always imagined everything and people in the most favorable light possible, especially so in those she did not know. And now, as she made surmises as to who people were, what were their relations to one another, and what they were like, Kitty endowed them with the most marvelous and noble characters, and found confirmation of her idea in her observations. Of these people, the one that attracted her most was a Russian girl who had come to the watering place with an invalid Russian lady, Madame Stahl, and everyone called her. Madame Stahl belonged to the highest society, but she was so ill that she could not walk, and only on exceptionally fine days made her appearance at the spring in an invalid carriage. But it was not so much from ill health as from pride. So Princess Shtcherbatskaya interpreted it that Madame Stahl had not made the acquaintance of any one among the Russians there. The Russian girl looked after Madame Stahl, and besides that, she was, as Kitty observed, on friendly terms with all of the invalids who were seriously ill, and there were many of them at the springs, and looked after them in the most natural way. The Russian girl was not, as Kitty gathered, related to Madame Stahl, nor was she a paid attendant. Madame Stahl called her Varenka, and other people called her Mademoiselle Varenka. Apart from the interest Kitty took in this girl's relations with Madame Stahl and with other unknown persons, Kitty, as often happened, felt an inexplicable attraction to Mademoiselle Varenka, and was aware when their eyes met that she too liked her. Of Mademoiselle Varenka, one would not say that she had passed her first youth, but she was, as it were, a creature without youth. She might have been taken for 19 or for 30. If her features were criticized separately, she was handsome rather than plain. In spite of the sickly hue of her face, she would have been a good figure too if it had not been for her extreme thinness and the size of her head, which was too large for her medium height. But she was not likely to be attractive to men. She was like a fine flower, already past its bloom, without fragrance, though the petals were still unwithered. Moreover, she would have been unattractive to men also from the lack of just what Kitty had too much of the suppressed fire of vitality and the consciousness of her own attractiveness. She always seemed absorbed in work about which there could be no doubt, and so it seemed she could not take interest in anything outside it. It was just that contrast with her own position that was for Kitty the manner of life. She would find an example of what she was now so painfully seeking: interest in life, a dignity in life, apart from the worldly relations of girls with men, which so revolted Kitty and appeared to her more attentively. Kitty watched her unknown friend, the more convinced she was this girl was the perfect creature. She fancied her, and the more eagerly she wished to make her acquaintance. The two girls used to meet several times a day, and every time they met, Kitty's eyes said, "Who are you? What are you? Are you really the exquisite creature I imagine you to be? But for goodness sake, don't suppose," her eyes added, "that I would force my acquaintance on you. I simply admire you and like you. I like you too, and you're very, very sweet, and I should like you better still if I had time," answered the eyes of the unknown girl. Kitty saw indeed that was always busy. Either she was taking the children of the Russian family home from the springs, or fetching a shawl for a sick lady and wrapping her up in it, or trying to interest an irritable invalid, or selecting and buying cakes for the tea for someone. Soon after the arrival of the Shklerbatskys, there appeared in the morning crowd at the springs two persons who attracted universal and unfavorable attention. These were a tall man with a stooping figure and huge hands, and an old coat too short for him, with black, simple, and yet terrible eyes, and a pockmarked, kind-looking woman, very badly and tastelessly dressed. Recognizing these persons as Russians, Kitty had already in her imagination began constructing a delightful and touching romance about them. But the princess, having ascertained from the visitors' list that this was Nikolay Levin and Maria Nikolaevna, explained to Kitty what a bad man this Levin was, and all her fancies about these two people vanished, not so much from her not so much from what her mother told her, as from the fact that it was Konstantin's brother. This pair suddenly seemed to Kitty intensely unpleasant. This Levin, with his continual twisting of his head around in her now, or irrepressible feelings of disgust. It seemed to her that his big, terrible eyes, which persistently pursued her, expressed a feeling of hatred and contempt, and she tried to avoid meeting him. Let's see how long this next chapter is. Oh, very short. I can do it. Chapter 31. It was a wet day. It had been raining all the morning, and the invalids with their parasols had flocked into the arcades. Kitty was walking there with her mother and the Moscow colonel, smart and jauntily in his European coat, bought ready-made at Frankfurt. They were walking on one side of the arcade, trying to avoid Levin, who was walking on the other side. Varenka, in her dark dress and a black hat with a turned-down brim, was walking up and down the whole length of the arcade with the blind Frenchwoman, and every time she met Kitty, they exchanged friendly glances. "Mamma, couldn't I speak to her?" said Kitty, watching her unknown friend and noticing that she was going up to the spring, and that they might come there together. "Oh, if you want to so much, I'll find out about her first and make her acquaintance myself," answered her mother. "What do you see in her out of the way? A companion she must be. If you like, I'll make acquaintance with Madame Stahl. I used to know her belle sœur," added the princess, lifting her head haughtily. Kitty knew that the princess was offended that Madame Stahl had seemed to avoid making her acquaintance. Kitty did not insist. "How wonderfully sweet she is," she said, gazing at Varenka. just as she handed a glass to the Frenchwoman. Look how natural and sweet it all is. It's so funny to see you. It's so funny to see your engouements, said the princess. No, we'd better go back, she added, noticing Levin coming towards them with his companion and a German doctor to whom he was talking very noisily and angrily. They turned to go back when suddenly they heard not noisy talk, but shouting. Levin, stopping short, was shouting at the doctor, and the doctor too was excited. A crowd gathered about them. The princess and Kitty beat a hasty retreat, while the colonel joined the crowd to find out what was the matter. A few minutes later, the colonel overtook them. What was it? Inquired the princess. Scandalous and disgraceful, answered the colonel. The one thing to be dreaded is meeting Russians abroad. That tall gentleman was abusing the doctor, flinging all sorts of insults at him because he wasn't treating him quite as he liked, and he began waving his stick at him. It's simply a scandal. Oh, how unpleasant, said the princess. Well, and how did it end? Luckily, at that point, the one in the mushroom hat intervened. A Russian lady, I think she is, said the colonel. Mademoiselle Varenka asked Kitty. Yes, yes, she came to the rescue before anyone. She took the man by the arm and led him away. There, Mamma, said Kitty. You wonder what I'm enthusiastic about her? The next day, as she watched her unknown friend, Kitty noticed that Mademoiselle Varenka was already on the same terms with Levin and his companion as with her other proteges. She went up to them, entered into conversation with them, and served as interpreter for the woman who could not speak any foreign language. Kitty began to entreat her mother still more urgently to let her make friends with Varenka, and disagreeable as it was to the princess to seem to take the first step in wishing to make the acquaintance of Madame Stahl, who thought fit to give herself airs, she made inquiries about Varenka, and having ascertained particulars about her tending to prove that there could be no harm, though little good, in the acquaintance, she herself approached Varenka and made acquaintance with her. Choosing a time when her daughter had gone to the spring, while Varenka had stopped outside the baker's, the princess went up to her. Allow me to make your acquaintance, she said, with her dignified smile. My daughter has lost her heart to you, she said. Possibly you do not know me. I am. That feeling is more than reciprocal, princess, Varenka answered hurriedly. What a good deed you did yesterday to our poor compatriot, said the princess. Varenka flushed a little. I don't remember. I don't think I did anything, she said. Why, you saved that Levin from disagreeable consequences. Yes, so Campagne called me, and I tried to pacify him. He's very ill and was dissatisfied with the doctor. I'm used to looking after such invalids. Yes, I've heard you live at Mentone with your aunt. I think Madame Stahl. I used to know her, Belsar. No, she's not my aunt. I call her Mamma, but I am not related to her. I was brought up by her, answered Varenka, flushing a little again. This was so simply said, and so sweet was the truthful and candid expression of her face, that the princess saw why Kitty had taken such a fancy to Varenka. Well, and what's this Levin going to do? Asked the princess. He's going away, answered Varenka. At that instant, Kitty came up from the spring, beaming with delight that her mother had become acquainted with her unknown friend. Well, see, Kitty, your intense desire to make friends with Mademoiselle Varenka put in, smiling. That's what everyone calls me. Kitty blushed with pleasure and slowly, without speaking, pressed her new friend's hand, which did not respond to her pressure but lay motionless in her hand. The hand did not respond to her pressure, but the face of Mademoiselle Varenka glowed with a soft, glad, though rather mournful smile that showed large, handsome teeth. I have long wished for this too, she said, but you are so busy. Oh no, I'm not at all busy, answered Varenka, but at that moment she had to leave her new friends because two little Russian girls, children of an invalid, ran up to her. Varenka, Mamma's calling, they cried. And Varenka went after them. Oh, it won't turn the page for me. Let's see how long this next one is. Okay. The next one is longer, so I think it's time to stop here. It's been 50 minutes. I know about 15 of that was talk for me, but I will try to get back maybe even tomorrow to read some more. Hopefully within the week. Oh, excuse me. I'm getting tired. I was already tired, as I had said earlier, but anyway, hopefully within the week. I know Wednesday is a very, very, very busy day for me. I can't get the word out of my mouth. A very busy day for me. So, down ice. Stopped. I put chapter 13 instead of 33. Yeah, little things like that. So, anyway, I will try to get back later this week, as I said, and get some more reading in so that it doesn't take so long to get through the whole entire book. And then we can figure out what the next book is that we're going to read. But this one is getting so, so good. I am really enjoying it. And I always say that a lot, but I am. And I am so glad that I'm sharing it with you guys and not just reading it on my own. So, with that, I am going to get out of here. Remember, you matter. And if you ever feel that you don't, know that there are people out there who think that you do, as in myself. And if you ever need to talk, just talk. Have somebody who can listen. I am always here from you. Here for you. And if you need more than, just to talk to me, if you want me to talk back and, you know, I will respond, but I will also just listen if that's what you want. And I want to get to know each and every one of you. So I do hope at some point in time I get to talk with you guys, besides just me talking and you listening. So, with that said, I am out of here. Oh, remember, you are beautiful, gorgeous, and handsome, whichever one you prefer. And know that I love you all, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great, great day, night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Love you guys. Later.